welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, broadcasting on Channels Television, live from Lagos. As the United Nations General Assembly continues this week, a major occurrence at today's proceedings was the hoisting of the Palestinian flag at the UN headquarters. The VOA's Margaret Bashir joins us now with more on the story. Margaret, thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you, and happy Independence Day to you and all your viewers tomorrow.
And it was a major decision, a major event today at the UN General Assembly with the hoisting of the flag. I've seen the pictures. Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki-moon was there. Of course, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. What led to that decision?
Last month, the Palestinians brought a resolution to the General Assembly asking member states if they would allow them as a non-member observer state to raise their flag. So there are only two non-member observer states, that's the Palestinians and the Vatican. And the membership of the General Assembly overwhelmingly endorsed the idea, but it doesn't change their status. Traditionally, only full member states displayed their flag here, but because of this resolution, the non-members were allowed to do it too. And their flags will fly at the very end. They're in alphabetical order outside of headquarters. Zimbabwe is the last one, and the Vatican is next to Zimbabwe, and then Palestine put theirs up today. But for them, for the Palestinian people, President Abbas said today, it's a very important in their struggle for freedom and independence. So it's a very symbolic gesture.
And that flag, how significant is it for not just Palestine, but for other countries such as the United States and Israel, who have cautioned against recognition of Palestine as a state?
Well, I'm sure Israel wasn't very happy about it. They call actions like this unilateral actions by Palestine. They repeatedly say that you can't have a state just by declaring a state. You need to do it through negotiations and talks on the final status. So I'm sure the Israelis were not too happy about it. They voted against it in the General Assembly, as did the United States. It should be mentioned, though, that about 40 countries abstained in that vote, many of them from Europe.
What major other discussions held at the UN General Assembly today? It seemed all the focus was on Palestine.
No, the real focus here today was on the Russian airstrikes in Syria. They were supposed to be targeting Islamic State fighters. That's what Moscow said. However, the French foreign minister said that the information they had earlier today, it was not in an area that was ISIL controlled. And we just heard about 20 minutes ago from the president of the main opposition group, Khalid Qudra, who's the head of the Syrian National Coalition, and he said that 36 civilians were killed in this Russian airstrike today, and it's in the town of Homs, and it's not in an ISIL-controlled area. So he disputed that they were attacking ISIL. He said they were attacking Syrian civilians. The Syrian opposition leader said that he condemned it, and he said it was an act of aggression by the Russians. And he called for the international community to establish safe zones in Syria for civilians to protect them.
Margaret, thank you for joining us on the news at 10, and thanks for being with us. Nigeria turns 55 tomorrow. So it really is great to have you this week. What a week we will be having. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10. The VOA's Margaret Bashir at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Back home, the River State's governor, Nyesom Wike, has insisted that the April 11 governorship election conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission in River State was held within a peaceful atmosphere, devoid of ballot box snatching, hijacking of electoral materials and other forms of violence. At the resumed sitting of the tribunal in Abuja, lawyer to Governor Wike, Mr. Okewale, who called 7 witnesses, told the tribunal the soldiers were not anywhere near polling booths as voters exercised their civic rights freely. He argued that the reports of elections not having held in Rivers State are untrue.
The governor of Rivers State, Mr. Nyesom Wike, has opened his defense at the Rivers State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal. One after the other, the defense team of the governor called 7 witnesses who affirmed that elections were conducted in a peaceful atmosphere in the state. Under cross-examination by the counsel to the petitioners, some of the witnesses admitted that card readers failed in some of the polling units, but the election was conducted with the use of manual voters register. Lawyers to the Rivers State Governor and the People's Democratic Party expressed satisfaction with the testimony of the witnesses as they promised to produce more witnesses.
Now they are attacking the witnesses who are leading evidence of the fact that indeed elections held, voters registers were used, card results were used. If you listen to the cross-examination, you will see them confronting witnesses with by INEC's records, such and such number were accredited with card reader. So there was accreditation with card reader.
The case is whether there was violence and therefore votings didn't take place in Rivers State. But as you have heard from the witnesses that were fielded by the first respondent, even by INEC, elections took place.
Although the lawyer to the Independent National Electoral Commission declined speaking on camera on the ground that he is a public servant, lawyer to the petitioners insists that he is prepared to prove that the Independent National Electoral Commission did not conduct governorship elections in Rivers State.
Particularly in the whole of Kana local government, there was no election. That is INEC's record. So what the witnesses who came, you see, came to present is what they made up. You see, if INEC that handled the election, look, there was no election. Is in the local government, and then witnesses are coming to say, oh, PDP got 451, PDP got 500, PDP got 600. In those places, obviously, there was no election there.
With an adjournment by the tribunal to enable members of the panel pay a condolence visit to the Court of Appeal over the deaths of two justices who lost their lives at the Hajj stampede in Saudi Arabia, the defense team of Governor Nyesom Wike now has 5 more days to present their remaining witnesses.
Justice Ahmed Mohammed of the Federal High Court Abuja, who is hearing the case between the Code of Conduct Tribunal and the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, has sent the case file back to the Chief Judge for reassignment. Justice Mohammed said the action was as a result of negative reports from online media that he granted an order restraining the Code of Conduct Tribunal from hearing the matter and that he has been compromised by the plaintiff, Senator Saraki. He said the allegations are bound to put any judgments on the matter to question. The Federal High Court, in its ruling last week, held that the respondents, Code of Conduct Bureau, were put on notice of the ex parte applications brought by the Senate President, seeking to stop his arrest by the police and stay proceedings before the Code of Conduct Tribunal over alleged false assets declaration. Also at the Court of Appeal, the hearing of the appeal filed by the Senate President over alleged false assets declaration has been stalled. The proceedings were stalled following the death of the presiding judge of Abuja Division, Justice Abdul Kadir Jega, and Justice Musa Hassan Al-Khali of the Ilorin Division. Both of the Court of Appeal were victims of the stampede in Mina, Saudi Arabia. The Court of Appeal had adjourned to September 29th for hearing. Some horrific news now from Borno State, saying that Boko Haram terrorists have now resorted to poisoning water sources like wells and streams in areas where they have been dislodged by army troops or areas threatened by offensive operations. The army says that it has information that no life has been lost as a result of the barbaric act of the terrorists. However, some cattle died after drinking water from poisoned sources. Cattle water ponds in Kangalam village along Marte and Abadam axis in Borno State are said to have been poisoned following which a large number of cattle have died drinking from the ponds. The Nigerian military has once again reiterated its commitment to finding the missing Chibok schoolgirls kidnapped over a year ago. In a chat with us earlier today, Army spokesperson Colonel Rabi Abubakar said the military does have a strategy towards finding the girls, but the main focus is that the girls are rescued alive. He also wants Nigerians to disregard videos and audio recordings of Boko Haram members claiming victory over the military. He insists the military will not be distracted by the group's ploys to present a false impression of the war against terror to Nigerians.
We are on course. Recently, we have rescued a lot of civilians from the terrorists, and I believe you must have read it on paper. Even last week alone, we rescued how many? About 300 plus children and women. And as long as we rescue this kind of thing, I mean, this kind of group of people, I will want to believe that rescuing Chibok girls is on site. Only that, we have to be extremely cautious. We have to be extremely careful, and we are planning towards making a rescue that will be not just to rescue them, but rescue them with their unharmed and with their lives.
The military says it's winning the war against terror, and yet there's a video gone viral on the internet showing members of Boko Haram celebrating the Salah. What do you say to that?
The issue of that shouldn't bother Nigerians. We are done fighting. We know how far we have gone, and we know how far we are planning, and we will not be distracted from that.
Army spokesperson Colonel Rabi Abubakar. When the news at 10 returns, Central Bank of Nigeria may review interest rates lower as President Buhari favors economic recovery. That will be in business news. Please join us again.